Why can't you just send me some damn flowers, like anyone else's boyfriend? Or some candy? I like candy. Just buy me a Hallmark card. Why don't you? Or a kitten, or a scarf. I meant to give you something, he said cautiously. You've made me feel like a kept woman, and you've certainly given the people who work at those businesses the impression I am. As far as I could tell in the dim dashboard light, Bill looked like he was trying to figure out the difference. We were just past the turnoff to Mimosa Lake, and I could see the deep woods on the lake side of the road in Bill's headlights. To my complete surprise, the car coughed and stopped dead. I took it as a sign. Bill would have locked the doors if he'd known what I was going to do, because he certainly looked startled when I scrambled out of the car and marched over the woods by the road. "Suki, get back in here right now!" Bill was mad now, by God. Well, it had taken him long enough. I shot him the bird as I stepped into the woods. I knew if Bill wanted me in the car, I'd be in the car, since Bill's about 20 times stronger and faster than me. After a few seconds in the darkness, I almost wished he'd catch up with me, but then my pride gave a twitch, and I knew I'd done the right thing. Bill seemed to be a little confused about the nature of our relationship, and I wanted him to get it straight in his head. He could just take his sorry ass to Shreveport and to explain my absence to his superior. Eric, by golly, that had shown him. "Suki," Bill called from the road, "I'm going to go to the nearest service station to get a mechanic." "Good luck," I muttered under my breath. A service station with a full-time mechanic open at night? Bill was thinking of the 50s or some other era. "You are acting like a child, Suki," Bill said. "I could come to get you, but I'm not going to waste the time. When you're calm, come get in the car and lock it. I'm going now." Bill had his pride too. To my mingled relief and concern, I heard the faint footfalls along the road that meant Bill was running at vampire speed. He'd really left. He probably thought he was teaching me a lesson, when it was just the opposite. I told myself that several times. After all, he'd be back in a few minutes, I was sure. All I had to do was be sure I didn't stumble far enough through the woods to fall into the lake. It was really dark in the pines, though the moon was not full. It was cloudless night, and the shadows in the trees were pitch black in contrast with the cool remote glow of the open spaces. I made my way back to the road, then took a deep breath and began marching back towards Bontemps, the opposite direction from Bill. I wondered how many miles we'd put between us and Bontemps before Bill had begun our conversation. Not so very many, I reassured myself, and patted myself on the back that I was wearing sneakers, not high-heeled sandals. I hadn't brought a sweater, and the exposed skin between my cropped top and my low-cut blue jeans felt goose-pimply. I began to run down the shoulder in an easy jog. There weren't any streetlights, so I would have been in a bad shape if it weren't for the moonlight. Just about the time I recalled that there was someone out there who'd murdered Lafayette, I heard footsteps in the wood parallel to my own path. When I stopped, the movement in the trees did also. I'd rather know now. "Okay, who's there?" I called. "If you're going to eat me, let's just do it over with. Let's just get it over with." A woman stepped out of the woods. With her was a razorback, a feral hawk. Its tusks gleamed from the shadows. In her left hand she carried a sort of stick or wand, with a tuft or something on its end. "Great," I whispered to myself. "Just great." The woman was as scary as the razorback. I was sure she wasn't a vampire because I could feel the activity in her mind, but she was sure some supernatural being, so she didn't send a clear signal. I could snatch the tenor of her thoughts anyway. She was amused. That couldn't be good. I hoped the razorback was feeling friendly. They were very rarely seen around Bon Temps, though every now and then a hunter would spot one, even more rarely bring one down. There was a picture in the paper occasion. This hawk smelled an awful and distinctive odor. I wasn't sure which to address to. After all, the razorback might not be a true animal at all, but a shapeshifter. That was one thing I'd learned in the past few months. If vampires, so long thought of as thrilling fiction, actually did exist, so did other things that we'd regarded as equally exciting fiction. I was really nervous, so I smiled. She had long snarled hair and indeterminate dark in the uncertain light, and she was wearing almost nothing. She had a kind of shift on, but it was short and ragged and stained. She was barefoot. She smiled back at me. Rather than scream, I grinned even more brightly. "I have no intention of eating you," she said. "Glad to hear it. What about your friend?" "Oh, the hawk?" As if she just noticed it, the woman reached over and scratched the razorback's neck, like I would a friendly dog's. The ferocious tusk bobbed up and down. "She'll do what I tell her," the woman said casually. I didn't need a translator to understand the threat. I tried to look equally casual as I glanced around the open space where I stood, hoping to locate a tree that I could climb with if I had to. But all the trunks close enough for me to reach in time were bare of branches. There were the loblolly pines grown by the million in our neck of the woods for the lumber. The branches start about 15 feet up. I realized what I should have thought of sooner. Bill's car stopping there was no accident, and maybe even the fight we'd had was no coincidence. "Who wanted to talk to me about something?" I asked her, and in turning to her I found she'd come several feet closer. I could see her face a little better now, and I was in no wise reassured. There was a stain around her mouth, and when it opened as she spoke, I could see the teeth had dark margins. Miss Mysterious had been eating a raw mammal. "I see you've already had supper," I said nervously, and then could have slapped myself. She said. "You are Bill's pet?" "Yes," I said. I objected to the terminology, but I wasn't in much position to take a stand. He would be really awfully upset if anything happened to me." "As if a vampire's anger's anything to me," she said offhandedly. "Excuse me, ma'am, but what are you, if you don't mind me asking?" She smiled again and shuddered. "Not at all. I'm a manet." That was something Greek. I didn't know exactly what, but it was wild, female, and lived in nature, if my impression were correct. That's very interesting," I said, grinning for all I was worth. "And you are out here tonight because—" "I need a message taken to Eric Northman," she said, moving closer. This time I could see her do it. The hawk snuffed along at her side as if she were tied to the woman. The smell was indescribable. I could see the little brushy tail of the razorback. It was switching back and forth in a brisk, impatient sort of way. "What is the message?" I glanced up at her and whirled to run as quickly as I could. If I hadn't ingested some vampire blood at the beginning of the summer, I couldn't have turned in time, and I would have taken the blow on my face and chest instead of my back. It felt exactly as though someone